Joss Whedon's gonna show some deleted scenes and do a question and answer session?
Oh, well, I have a few questions for him and a whole lot of answers.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and what if I told you that the MCU that you know and love is a lie? I'm just kidding, but it is true that the MCU could have been radically different. Now, throughout the years, we've gotten deleted scenes and scrapped concepts that would have changed the MCU as we know it. So in this video, we're going to talk about all the ways the MCU would have been drastically changed by deleted scenes, including that we almost got to see Deadpool appear in the Avengers Endgame fight. Let's go! So, let's get into all the deleted concepts and scenes that would have changed the MCU forever. Now, a little later, I want to tell you guys about some huge new merch drops at our store, like this amazing creation of Peace and Darth Vulcan, but more on that later. Some of these deleted scenes would have been huge changes, like what if I told you that the MCU considered debuting Captain Marvel 8 movies earlier?
Wait, really?
Yep, it's been a minute since the Infinity Saga, so quick refresher in case you're fuzzy on the details of her canon entrance into the MCU. Captain Marvel was alluded to in the Avengers Infinity War post-credit scene. Nick Fury pages her just as he turns to dust and we see her emblem. Now, we don't actually see her though until her titular movie, Captain Marvel, but she actually appeared in early drafts of Age of Ultron, albeit briefly. So you know that shot right at the end of the movie where Wanda floats down into the frame? So originally, they plated that to be Captain Marvel. In fact, they even filmed placeholder footage for that, which they released in the Infinity Saga box set. And remember, right before this entrance, Captain America said,
"They're good. They're not a team."
So this wouldn't just reveal Captain Marvel, it would establish her as part of the Avengers team, which is something that we still haven't seen in the MCU. Now, of course, she shows up to fight really big bads like Thanos, but she pretty much exists off in her own corner. We see that in the Marvels.
Carol Danvers, prodigal child of the Milky Way. How goes it out there?
Thriving.
Now, Captain Marvel being part of the team would have huge ramifications. For one, Civil War would have been much worse. Remember, as bad as Civil War was, the MCU sidelined a lot of characters to make it more evenly matched. Hulk and Thor were both on Sakaar, completely unaware of anything going on. And this was also pre-Doctor Strange.
Yeah, but Wanda and Vision were there.
Yeah, they were, but they were still in the infancy of their powers, especially Wanda. She was really strong and could do stuff like this. But there was a marked jump between Civil War Wanda and Infinity War Wanda. And even in Infinity War, she wasn't demonstrating the type of power that we see in WandaVision or Multiverse of Madness. So in Civil War, each side was pretty evenly matched. Each side had their leader and a sidekick, a spy, someone powered by an Infinity Stone, someone named after an animal, and someone named after a bug. It was actually a very fair fight. But imagine if Captain Marvel was involved. Her side would easily win. She could actually single-handedly fight the other team by herself and win. It wouldn't even be a contest. But of course, neither side would simply accept defeat. After all, in the movie, both sides recruited outside their normal team. Team Iron Man recruited Black Panther and Spider-Man, while Team Cap recruited Ant-Man. So it's fair to assume that, if Captain Marvel was involved, the fight would only get larger with the opposing side recruiting more and more superheroes to defeat her. Maybe Thor and Hulk would be forced to return. Maybe we'd see direct fighting from former S.H.I.E.L.D. agents like Maria Hill. Or maybe Scott brings along Hope. After all, her armor debuted in the post-credit scene of Ant-Man. So what would be a better time to show it off?
Hey person, why you got that pretty picture next to you?
Oh, well, I figured we've never actually rented a movie out to anybody, so maybe we could sell this nice artwork on the side.
Well, that's a nice picture, but this is a movie store. I don't think anybody's ever going to want to buy
Oh,
one.
wow, this is a pretty cool poster. Oh, you like it? This is actually a metal poster made by Displate. They're the sponsor of this video.
Geez, it looks great. How much does it cost to buy
You
it?
see, Displates are durable with more than 2 million designs, so there really is something for everyone. They have Marvel, Star Wars, Star Trek, Warhammer, DC, and tons more to pick from. Plus, thousands of artists around the world are able to share their unique designs on the site as well. Guys, we have been sponsored by Displate for years because I love these posters. Look, like this is my actual wall. It is also super easy to switch the Displates out if you want a change of scenery. With their tool-free magnet mounting system, there's no holes in the wall and they're easy to adjust.
Oh, but I bet it takes like a year for them to make those posters.
Not at all, little buddy. Your new metal poster should arrive in just 4 to 5 business days. They also make for an amazing gift. I got my sister this Stand By Me one for Christmas. Also, this one is of my favorite Next Generation episode, The Inner Light. But Displate also offers Textra posters which have this raised tactile texture. Look, you can really see how the TIE fighters are raised and how they're coming off the poster. It is so cool. Or how the topography is actually raised on this map of Middle Earth. And now, for the first time, these Textra posters will be discounted.
Wait, there's a discount?
Yes, for Black Friday, Displate is offering the biggest discount of the year with up to 44% off your order, including these amazing texture designs. This is a great gift for the movie geek in your life, especially if that movie geek happens to be yourself.
I mean, I want one. I want one right now.
So if any of you guys out there want a Displate, use my link in the description. The discount is applied automatically, or use my code to get the biggest discount of the year. Now, back to what I was saying. It's even possible that other characters would also debut earlier. Maybe Wong and Mordo show up because they're worried about Earth's protection if the Avengers split up. Maybe Natasha recruits Yelena. After all, chronologically, Black Widow takes place right after Civil War. The main thing is, though, that Civil War would have been much bigger and much bloodier if Captain Marvel was involved. And then her solo movie could deal with the ramifications of her actions. If it was set in the present day, it would be direct. But even if it was a prequel film, similar to the actual Captain Marvel film, we'd see why she supported her side in Civil War. We'd already feel more familiar and grounded with her, so it would be a lot easier to get into her motivations, instead of just a film that tells us a lot about her without much emotional development. Plus, Infinity War would have featured a much more intense battle. It's hard to imagine, I know, but think about Endgame. The entire battle changes the moment Captain Marvel enters the picture. Imagine if we had 2 fights like that.
But person, wouldn't Thanos lose if Carol Danvers was there?
Actually, I don't think so. Remember, if Carol Danvers joined the team in Age of Ultron, then Civil War would have been worse. The reason that Thanos beat the Avengers was because they were divided, and if Captain Marvel was along for that entire arc, that division would have been even worse. So who knows if it would even be possible for them to work together again. And if the Avengers aren't together, they lose against Thanos point blank. Another scrapped concept is Wanda Maximoff surviving the snap. So the screenwriters for Infinity War and Endgame, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, revealed in an interview that Wanda was a part of Endgame in the early drafts. Wanda was originally part of the time heist. She would have gone on a road trip with Rocket to find one of the Infinity Stones. There was also a scene where Wanda would open a drawer in her home containing Vision's dead body.
Oh, geez, that's super sad and really messed up.
I know, and the writers thought so too. So since Wanda had a lot of screen time and character growth in Infinity War, the writers felt they couldn't top those scenes in Endgame.
So she was erased, reduced to atoms.
Yeah, but could you imagine if she wasn't? Wanda would have suffered through 5 years of isolation. She would spend this time studying her powers and possibly discovering the legend of the Scarlet Witch on her own. The Avengers and the Widow's Council would try to check in, but she wouldn't trust them. The Avengers she had a connection to, Hawkeye, would be too busy in his own grief as Ronin. This version of Wanda would study for an extra 5 years, becoming an all-powerful witch. So, after the events of Endgame, when everybody else is brought back except Vision, she'd be devastated and furious. So the events of WandaVision would probably still happen after Endgame, but this time, Wanda would have been fully aware of her actions. Tired of being the hero, she creates the Hex and breathes life into Vision and her kids. And since Wanda would have had Vision's body, SWORD would have had a reduced role in the show, or their new mission would be to retrieve Vision's body. Wanda only realizes how wrong she is when Agatha reveals herself as a character foil to Wanda. When Wanda sees the miserable and evil Agatha, she'll realize the error in her ways and take down the Hex. But since she knows it's possible for her to have Vision, Billy, and Tommy, her next scheme would lead into Multiverse of Madness. This way, we see her gradually becoming the villain instead of the massive heel turn that we got in Multiverse of Madness. And that heel turn was the most controversial part of Phase 4. It's the kind of thing that actually we love to debate about on our Discord.
Oh, we have a Discord?
Yes, you can join our Discord for free where we nerd out together and we have movie watch parties, had a heated discussion watching The Last Jedi last night, and you can also get updates on our live shows.
The live shows?
Yes, we are coming to Washington, D.C. on December 2nd and Chicago on December 8th. My favorite part of the live show is getting to meet you guys and nerd out together, and we're doing this new thing where we brainstorm and create a brand new ScreenCrush video live and with you. It is so much fun.
Hey, did we ever get those new merch designs?
Oh my god, yes, thank you for reminding me. We have just launched a ton of new gift merch that we are so excited to finally get to show you guys. We have this I Hate You 3000, a parody of the Iron Man Mark I armor wearing Dr. Doom's green cloak, and this awesome portrait inspired by Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, featuring Tony Stark giving life to Ultron on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. But we also have this Marty McFly in Cloud City, a parody of this.
I am your father.
And also this evil always triumph because good is dumb, Grogu booping a Raincor's nose, and this awesome Loki gator coming out of the toilet. Guys, for merch updates like this, you can subscribe to our newsletter for special sales and exclusive new drops. Thank you guys for watching, supporting our channel. Thanks for listening to all those plugs. Now, back to the deleted scenes. Speaking of heel turns toward evil, another deleted scene from Iron Man 3 would have given Tony Stark access to Extremis. An alternate scene of Maya's death showed her crawling to a computer and transferring the original Extremis plans to Tony right before dying.
Person, is this the Maya from Echo we're talking about?
Actually, no, buddy. It's actually been a minute since Iron Man 3, so in case you forgot, Maya Hansen was a colleague of Tony Stark's. She created Extremis to help the sick and regrow lost limbs, but when hosts rejected the Extremis, they would explode. Maya's business partner, Aldrich Killian, framed these failed experiments as attacks posing as the Mandarin, so Maya asked Tony and Pepper for help. So this deleted scene gives much more weight to Maya's character. She trusts Tony with her work and admits that she was wrong to trust Killian, and then leaves the Extremis legacy behind. In the comics, Extremis is more like a virus. With Tony's slight adjustments, he is able to call his suit to his body just like he attempted to in Iron Man 3. After upgrading Extremis, Tony could cure diseases, create living armor, and even control one of Null's symbiote dragons. Iron Man 3 would end the same way, with Tony starting over, but instead of working on nanotech armor, he would then tinker with Extremis. So instead of the nanotech suit we got in Infinity War, Tony would have unveiled his superior Extremis suit. Now, maybe it wouldn't beat Thanos, but that fight could have been much closer. This might affect other characters with nanotech, like Peter Parker's Iron Spider suit. However, we're going to assume that Tony kept the Extremis suit for himself, like in the comics. That would mean that after his sacrifice in Endgame, a show like Armor Wars would have explored countries and tech companies vying for not only Iron Man armor, but also the formula for Extremis. And while Rhodey and Pepper safeguard those secrets, the MCU doesn't have to abandon the use of nanotech. Ironheart could develop her own brand of nanotech armor while studying with Shuri, like we saw in Wakanda Forever. And speaking of Wakanda Forever, there was a pivotal deleted scene from that movie that would have established Okoye as the new Queen of Wakanda. The border tribe elder M'Kathu tries to convince Okoye that she should compete with Shuri at the Warrior Falls to become queen. And clearly, if she did this, it would have vast geopolitical effects for the rest of the MCU. If Okoye would have taken over, it would be a huge political upheaval.
Politics, 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 politics.
Remember, Aluma Bashenga, the original Black Panther and first king of Wakanda, is T'Challa's ancestor. So, for their entire history, Wakanda's been controlled by one family. So, anyone else leading the country is a massive geopolitical change.
But doesn't M'Baku become king of Wakanda at the end of the movie?
Well, he does, and let me be clear, I think that's going to cause a big shakeup. And that was a peaceful transfer of power. Shuri let him take over. He didn't exactly fight her to the death. That wouldn't be the case, though, for Okoye. She'd have to actually challenge her, which makes the whole situation a lot more sinister, especially when you consider that Killmonger is still a recent memory for Wakandans. I think it's safe to assume that if Shuri and Okoye fought, Okoye would definitely win. Shuri's a great fighter and a really great Black Panther, but come on, Okoye is the leader of the Dora Milaje. Now, if Okoye became queen, the Dora Milaje would be very loyal to her, almost like soldiers after a military coup. And since she's been a warrior all of her life, Okoye would rule like a warrior. And remember, Wakanda was actively under attack, not just by Namor, but by other countries. The film opens with members of the UN trying to loot their vibranium. So Okoye would lead a very militaristic regime. And that would really put Wakanda on the defensive. We already know that the US wants to destabilize Wakanda.
The president wants to take offensive action against Wakanda.
What type of offensive action?
Destabilization.
And if other countries see them as an active military threat, they're only going to attack them with more intensity. Wakanda would be very alone in the world. And remember what Namor said at the end of the movie? Especially if they were already militaristic and on the defensive, Okoye would likely strike that deal. So if Okoye became queen, we'd see an entirely different Wakanda than the MCU established in prior phases. I think that's probably why this idea was cut. That is a lot of world building to suddenly rewrite. And look, Marvel is constantly reworking their world. I know we like to think that Marvel has a giant master plan, but in reality, sometimes they're just seeing what works and what they can get rights to do.
Copyright law, copyright law.
In a deleted scene from the original Iron Man movie, for example, Nick Fury talks about concepts that we're just now getting to see in the MCU.
As if gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants weren't enough.
Now, had this scene stayed in, it doesn't mean we would have seen Spider-Man and the X-Men years earlier, but it does mean that we would have had the expectation of seeing Spider-Man and the X-Men. So maybe we wouldn't have been as quick to embrace characters like Captain America and Thor. We would have been thinking, screw this, where's the next Spider-Man movie? Now, another good example of throw it on the porch and see if the cat licks it up is Zeus in Love and Thunder. The character we got in the movie was villainous, albeit goofy, but in deleted scenes, he was a much nicer guy.
Like the Romans say, apri il cuore. Open your heart.
In fact, he voluntarily gave Thor the Thunderbolt by explaining that it wasn't a specific weapon, but rather just the harnessing of electricity. This would have established Zeus as a quasi-hero, or at least hero adjacent. He could have shown up in major battles like Secret Wars, just like Valkyrie did in Endgame. He would still mostly be a god in his own universe, but every once in a while he would have popped back up. And I would have loved this because Russell Crowe is a great actor and he was severely underused in Love and Thunder. They used him for jokes, but if they included this deleted scene, we would have seen a more emotional and grounded side of the characters.
Yeah, but why did they cut that out? It's so heartwarming.
Well, if they would have made Zeus a good guy, then they couldn't have set up Hercules. Remember, Hercules' entrance is predicated on Zeus being a villain.
They will fear us again when Thor Odinson falls from the sky.
There's no way to incorporate this post-credits scene if Zeus is a good guy. But the thing is, that Hercules scene hasn't even paid off yet. We haven't seen or heard him mentioned since Love and Thunder. And Brett Goldstein, the actor who played Hercules, says he doesn't know the future of the character. Now, since we don't know when or even if Hercules will pay off, it feels like Marvel cut out a great scene and a better character arc for, well, at this point, nothing. Now, that's been an increasing problem for the MCU in the past few years. They've cut some great scenes or changed around endings just to set something up or to keep the project in the Marvel tone. And in many cases, it's left us with like lackluster movies. There's no better example of this than Quantumania. Now, I should say though, this is all rumored. Marvel has never confirmed that there was a different ending, but a lot of evidence supports that Marvel Studios changed the ending at the last minute. For one thing, there were reshoots done in January of 2023, and from paparazzi photos, we know that they were shooting the birthday scene. There were also major plot leaks prior to the movie's release. In fact, a partial transcript of the film leaked on Reddit. Now, most of these leaks were accurate. For example, Darren Cross returning as MODOK. But the film's actual ending was different from the leaked ending, leading fans to speculate that they changed the original ending last minute. So allegedly, in the original ending, Scott Lang was stuck in the quantum realm and Kang escaped, entering Earth 616 to terrorize our world of heroes. And man, that would have been such a better ending. One of the biggest critiques of Quantumania is that Kang, the new big bad, was beaten up by Ant-Man. And hey, no hate to Ant-Man, he's a cool hero. But Thanos took on all of the Avengers and won. Kang getting defeated by one minor Avenger just made the villain feel lackluster. How could he rival Thanos when one single Avenger could take him out? Now, Marvel tried to reckon with this in the new ending when Scott says,
We did beat him, right?
and we also see the post-credits Council of Kangs, so we know that there are more Kangs coming. But come on, wouldn't it have been better if he just beat Scott fair and square? And this didn't just have in-universe consequences. The meta consequences of changing the ending were massive. Quantumania is only the second MCU film to be certified rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. And look, I'm on the record, I think that movie gets too much hate, but I can't deny that that original ending would have made it a much better movie. Our heroes are only as good as their villains. If the villains are too easy to beat, then there's no catharsis, and worse, the fight's boring. If the villain will always lose no matter what, then there are no stakes, and in that case,
Why the f are you wasting my 2 precious hours with your movie?
especially when it comes to setting up your new villain. Now, obviously, Johnathan Majors would have been fired no matter what because of the assault charges levied against him. However, it's interesting that after this movie was released, before Majors was arrested, Marvel pivoted hard away from Kang the Conqueror. It is possible that instead of just abandoning the character, that we could have seen him recast and we wouldn't be having Doctor Doom now, we'd still be in the middle of Kang's multiverse saga. Now, another example of a changed and botched ending is the Eternals. Chloe Zhao confirmed in an interview with Empire that the Eternals ending was changed last minute, which makes sense because that ending really does feel kind of random.
Your friends are in big trouble, and we know where to find them.
Now, as much as I like the setup of Star Fox and Pip the Troll and all that stuff, in fact, we just made a video about how much I want to see Eternals 2, I gotta admit, the original ending was so much better. Zhao said that it used to end on everybody back on the ship, minds erased, and just going on to another planet, like the Twilight Zone. She also said that originally Eros, Harry Styles' character, would replace one of the Eternals. My guess is it would have been Ajax or Icarus. Now, that ending would have been so much better than the Celestial just randomly showing up on Earth. And again, I don't want to say that this ending would have saved the movie. Like Quantumania, Eternals did have other problems besides the ending, but God, it would have made the ending so much better. What a mic drop. Remember, the Eternals was the first MCU movie to be certified rotten. It began that Marvel hate train. Zhao said that they changed the ending because it was too bleak. So Marvel, which defined itself partially in opposition to the dark and gritty films of the DCEU, couldn't have that, so they needed a more upbeat ending. And so we got the Eternals ending where Harry Styles enters with a leprechaun. Had that original ending been in place, and had it been a huge hit, then maybe audiences films would embrace a weird, different, darker tone for Marvel. Now, Marvel's always been married to its comparatively upbeat tone. The original Iron Man set a precedent with the quippy one-liners.
Please, no gang signs.
But early on, that could have been completely different. In fact, The Incredible Hulk almost set an entirely different tone for the MCU with just one scene. Now, the actual film begins with Bruce Banner, then played by Edward Norton, meditating and keeping time with the metronome. It's still kind of dark. We see his first rampage through the opening credits, but it's nothing compared to what could have been. Originally, the film was supposed to open with Bruce Banner hiking in the Arctic and trying to take his own life. And we actually hear a reference to this in the Avengers.
I didn't see an end, so I put a bullet in my mouth and the other guy spit it out.
But it's nothing compared to actually seeing it. Remember, The Incredible Hulk was almost the first movie in the MCU, so if this was the opening scene to this entire franchise, that would have changed everything. We may still have had the same humorous and light tone that we see in certain projects, but Marvel couldn't shy away from the darker elements of their characters. After all, the first scene of their entire series would have been this incredibly dark moment. And frankly, that would have given us a better character arc for Bruce Banner. It's hard to talk about the Hulk in the light and humorous tone that Marvel demands. Now, we saw it done occasionally in films like Thor Ragnarok.
Earth hate Hulk.
You know what? Earth does hate you.
But even then, it was 8 years after his on-screen debut. Now, because the Hulk is a heavier character and there was nothing to counteract the light and funny tone established by films like Iron Man, Thor, and the Avengers, a lot of Bruce Banner's arc was left on the cutting room floor. In fact, his trilogy was merely woven into other movies. Mark Ruffalo said Kevin Feige told him that his arc would play out in the next 3 movies, starting in Thor 3 and then into Avengers 3 and 4. But if The Incredible Hulk began with Banner trying to take his own life, there would already be a precedence for this darker tone. Maybe we would have gotten that Hulk trilogy earlier with his movies alongside Phase 1 films like First Avenger and Thor. Now, Hulk wasn't the only character to lose screen time early on. In fact, one of the most sidelined characters in all of the MCU is Maria Hill. Now, throughout the entire history of the MCU, it always felt like they didn't know what to do with Maria Hill until they just eventually killed her off in Secret Invasion. R.I.P. And that problem stems from the original Avengers movie where most of her scenes ended up on the cutting room floor. Originally, Maria Hill was supposed to be a lot more antagonistic to Nick Fury. Most of her scenes involved her following protocol and going against him in the process.
Did you tell the council that Barton had been compromised?
Was that not procedure?
In fact, the alternate opening scene shows Maria Hill criticizing Fury and the Avengers to the World Council.
I thought they were a joke. Nick Fury only ever saw them as the Avengers.
When all of those scenes were deleted, her character arc was pretty much gone, so she ended up just as a floating character in the MCU without much personal or plot development.
Agreed.
But imagine if those scenes were kept in. Not only would it make her a stronger character, but it would contribute so much plot-wise to this espionage side of the MCU. Let's think about Winter Soldier, for example. What if Maria Hill stood with S.H.I.E.L.D. until the last possible minute, not willing to admit that they were Hydra? What if she didn't trust Steve Rogers because he was a superhero and she felt like he was an interloper into her precious government agency? The intrigue and suspense would be so much more intense, and it would be awesome to see Maria struggle with 2 competing ideas: the love for law and order versus doing what's right. In fact, let's take it even a step further. What if Maria was working with Hydra? She blamed Fury and the superheroes for what happened in New York, and she wants them eliminated. Imagine if she revealed that she was the real mastermind instead of Alexander Pierce. It would have been a much bigger betrayal and also so much more memorable. I mean, honestly, how many times have you thought about Alexander Payne since Winter Soldier?
Once an hour, every hour since April 2014.
Well, that's you. And if she wasn't working with Hydra, she still could have played a massive role in Civil War. If you know anything about Maria Hill from the comic, you know that she becomes very anti-superhero during Civil War. Imagine if they adapted that arc. Instead of Ross pushing for the Sokovia Accords, it's Hill. And Team Cap would feel personally betrayed because she was Fury's right-hand woman. Meanwhile, Team Iron Man is more inspired because she's on their side. Honestly, maybe she's even working with Zemo. She's seen the destruction caused by superheroes firsthand and she can't take it anymore, so she goes beyond the Sokovia Accords. Now, she just wants them eliminated. The point is, she would have been perfectly poised to become the anti-superhero zealot that we need in the MCU. We could slowly see her radicalization throughout several movies, starting with the deleted scene from the Avengers and moving through the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D., the events of Age of Ultron, and ultimately Civil War. And her disdain for superheroes would have been so impactful. This isn't a random person who's upset they lost a family member or their town got destroyed. android, Maria is somebody who knows everything about the Avengers. She knows the good and the bad. And she's saying, no, this is not okay. It has to stop. We can't just simply trust superheroes. It would mean so much coming from her, but in order for that arc to start, we needed to see those scenes in the Avengers. Now, we're sad that we lost so many Maria Hill scenes, but there's one concept that was left on the cutting room floor that is even more upsetting. Deadpool in Thor Ragnarok. That's right. Taika Waititi wanted Deadpool in the movie, and we are devastated. First of all, that would have been a great movie for Deadpool to make his first MCU appearance. It's so funny, and Deadpool would have fit right in.
I know, right?
Imagine him as one of the openers for the Grandmasters tournament. He's constantly getting his ass kicked, but since he can't die, he keeps performing.
Come again? This time in my ears?
And when Thor comes along, cue the fourth wall break and Deadpool saying, "This is my ticket out of here, baby!" Also, it would be easy to explain his appearance on Sakaar. In the movie, they state that Sakaar is a weird place in time and space. Tons of portals open there and time doesn't make any sense.
Time works real different around these parts. On any other world, I'd be like millions of years old. But here on Sakaar,
So it would be easy to say that 20th Century Fox kicked Deadpool out and he fell through time until a portal opened up, landing him on a trash dump planet. Maybe he would even get to join the Revengers against Hela. I mean, do you know how funny it would have been for the Goddess of Death to face a basically unkillable character? I just love the idea that she keeps stabbing him or decapitating him and he's like, ooh, nice move, Green Lady, but it's not gonna work. But the best thing that Deadpool could have been in was Infinity War and Endgame.
Wait, person, wouldn't that really change the tone of those movies?
No, not as much as you think. I mean, remember, Infinity War already had a lot of funny characters. I still think that this is one of the funniest scenes in the MCU.
Where is Gamora?
Yeah, I'll do you one better. Who's Gamora?
I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora?
What master do you serve? What master do I serve? What am I supposed to say, Jesus?
And the humor worked because it was masterfully balanced with these very emotional, gut-wrenching scenes. And no amount of humor can change the emotional gut punch of that ending. In fact, Deadpool's inclusion would have even added to it. Deadpool is a character who can never shut up and stop cracking jokes.
They call me the Merc with the Mouth. They don't call me Truthful Timmy, the Queen of Saskatoon.
So imagine the weight of him standing there at the end of Infinity War. Everyone's just turned to dust. Thanos got away and they lost. And even Deadpool would have nothing to say. He just sits there in shocked silence.
That sent shivers up my spine.
I know, it would have been so good if only Disney and 20th Century Fox would have worked out their deal just a couple of months earlier.
And since Fox is now owned by Disney, which will someday be owned by Netflix.
But remember, guys, that means we also would have had Deadpool in the final battle against Thanos in Avengers Endgame. Imagine Deadpool getting to run with the Infinity Gauntlet football. He's immortal, so Thanos and his goons could just hack away at him and he would just keep going. Until finally, someone would come along and lift the glove from his severed arm.
Man, that would have been awesome.
I know. We also could have seen Deadpool on the time heist. This could have set up the show Loki a lot earlier and have Deadpool more involved with the TVA. Basically, Deadpool is a perfect crossover for the MCU and it would have worked so perfectly at really any point in the franchise's history. I mean, the MCU's success is in part because of its interconnectedness and its planning. But as fans, I think we overestimate just how much planning there is. There is no magic scroll they're all reading from or an all-knowing AI guiding them. This is a team of executives and creatives reacting to what sticks in real time. The MCU is never going to be set in stone. It's an ever-evolving collection of projects. And so, in our vast multiverse, there are completely different MCUs just because Feige decided to keep one deleted scene. But guys, that's just our thoughts. What scenes do you wish made it into the MCU? And big shout out to the writers of this video, Brianna, McLarty, and Ethan Eng. You can find their social links below. And you could also contact me on our Discord server. Links are below, and I'm also on X, Blue Sky, and Threads. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.